Hey guys, I'm Kat from the Motorhome travel website Wandering Bird, where we share tips and tricks for touring the UK and Europe by motorhome and campervan. Now, one of the questions that I have been asked a lot over the last few weeks since we travelled back from France to the UK was about the procedure, the paperwork that we needed and everything else. And I was really reluctant to make this video for many reasons, but mostly because I didn't want to share information which is going to go out of date, and it will at some point be completely obsolete, and also then confuse people and just add to the general chaos that comes with travel at the moment. However, given how many people have asked me for it, and given how the rules look like they're adapting, and again, don't have a crystal ball, not sure what's going to happen in the future, but given how things seem to be evolving, I think the basics of what we had to do to travel from France to the UK are going to stay around for a short while. So let me start this with the caveat that this was our experience of travelling from France to the UK in May 2021 when France was an amber country. Now, I've got no idea if when you're watching this that's changed or not, but this is our experience of that time. Also, because I know how people are at the moment, I am in no way encouraging people to travel if you don't have to, if it's against the rules, if the government guidelines have changed. Any of those things, this is just for information only. If it's in no way allowed to travel, please, I am not encouraging you to travel. I'm just sharing our experiences. Right, with all of that out of the way, let me go through what we had to do to travel back from France to the UK. So I have got notes here, and I am going to be looking at them because I don't want to say anything out of turn. So there is an order of things that you have to do to get the right documents that you need to then fill out the next document on the list. It's crazy complicated. There is a post on the Wandering Bird website, which I will link to beneath this video, which will help you go through it step by step. And honestly, it took us ages to get our heads around what we had to do. The government website is brilliant, and I linked to that many times throughout the post, but I found that it was quite confusing the way they shared the information, as if they just expected you to know what they were talking about. Possibly that was us just misreading it or not really understanding it, but having gone through it, what they're saying makes more sense, but working up to going through it I found quite tough. So the post is there on the website if you want to work through it along with what I'm saying here. If at any point you get a bit lost and confused, that might be an easier way for you to go through this. Also, we haven't as yet crossed back from the UK to France, so I can't comment on that. I also can't comment on what France are asking for and how legal it is or any of that. We haven't done that stage yet. So this is just from coming back from France into the UK. Before I get started, if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video. And also, if you are planning a trip into Europe at some point in the future, it doesn't have to be within the next few weeks. If you are planning a trip in the future, make sure that you know the exact equipment that you need to take with you. I'm not talking right now about COVID paperwork. I'm talking about all the other fun things that you need. If you'd like a free checklist, then there is one listed in the notes below this that you can just download and take it all with you. And hopefully it means you won't forget anything, because quite frankly, there's enough to remember at the moment. Okay, let us dive in. No, we are never letting this go. So, before we get started, just for those of you who don't know, there are at present 3 tiers that the UK government are running for all the other countries around the world. You've got green, which is obviously good, amber, which is most of them, and then red. What you have to do when you return to the UK is based on which tier or colour country you've been visiting over the past 10 days. Now, if you visit, say, a red country and then you go to a green country for 10 days before you come back to the UK, I believe they only care about your last 10 days, so they will only treat you as someone coming from a green country. Of course, again, I'm filming this at the end of May 2021, and if that's changed and they care about the last 6 weeks, then obviously this is all I know at the time. I'm going to keep saying that because at some point it's going to bite me in the butt. So here's the order that we recommend doing everything you've got to do to get back into the UK. First thing you need to do is book your exact travel, which I know is sometimes easier said than done, and whether you're going by the tunnel or whether you're going by the ferry, it can be a bit of a pain, especially if you're used to doing a flexible ticket. But you need to know when you're going to be crossing into the UK border in order to then fulfill the rest of it. So you are going to need to book your return travel before you can go much further down this list. Once you've done that, your next stage is to book your PCR COVID-19 test in the country that you're returning from, which in this example is France. Now, France works slightly different from the way that the UK works in terms of getting blood tests and things done. They've got a series of buildings called laboratoires, and apologies for my French accent if I've pronounced that slightly different, but basically laboratories with an IE instead of a Y on the end. And those are where if your doctor orders you to get a blood test done or anything, you would go to a laboratoire. So what you need to do is find one somewhere near your region and then ask them for a for travel COVID test, pour voyage. That means that you can get the results back really, really quickly. I think I had my test done, I think it was about 10:30 in the morning, and I got them back by 5 o'clock on my email, and then you just need to print that out. So it's unlikely that you will be able to walk into a laboratoire and get the test done that day. You are going to need to book it in advance. I always find it easier to go in and try and explain face to face what you want, but if you're brave enough to phone up and do it by phone, go for it. They've got these things all over France. Generally you're looking at a big town, or cities have several. You're probably not going to find one in a village or a smaller town. You are looking for sort of bigger settlements. So that's your second stage, is to book in that test for within 72 hours of when you cross into the UK or cross the UK border. And that's why you need to know when you're going to cross, so that you can make sure that your PCR test is within that 72-hour window. Now, as far as I know, it's not like the dog tapeworm thing, which has to be done 1 to 5 days before you cross. I believe, obviously assuming you get the results back instantly, which you don't, but I believe you can get the test done, say, the morning if you were going to travel that night, and as long as you can guarantee the test back, which I would allow at least 24 hours for the test, but there's no time before window. You could technically get the test done 10 minutes before you got on the boat, and if you got the results back instantly, you'd be okay to travel. Talking of dogs, that has not changed. Whether you have a UK health certificate or whether you have a foreign passport for your pet, getting back into the UK hasn't changed the process. You will still need to visit a vet, and you still need to get a tapeworm treatment done, and that has to be done 1 to 5 days before, so a full 24 hours before you cross back into the UK. And then you need your health certificate or your passport stamped saying that they've had the tapeworm treatment, and then they're good to go. That way is really quite straightforward. But again, you need to book that in. That's step 3 on your list. Once you know when you're coming back into the UK, you know the exact date you're going to go back into the UK, you need to order your quarantine tests for in the UK. And at the moment, you have to do a test on day 2 and a test on day 8. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can get these tests done. You can either get an at-home test, or you can get, I think they're called a supervised test, where basically you have to go somewhere and they do the test for you. We did the at-home tests. They were much more pleasant than getting them done to you. And even though you have to shove the thing up your nose, it's not anywhere near as horrible as when somebody's doing it properly. So personally, I recommend doing the at-home one, but if you feel more comfortable getting a supervised test done, you can. And the packs are actually really, really good. You cannot use the NHS for this. It has to be done with a private firm. We ordered ours from a company in Winchester, and again, the link to that is in the post. It's in the show notes. It cost £240 per person. Yes, per person, to get these tests done and to get them processed. And that's what you're looking at. That's probably the biggest expense of actually coming back, and that's how I believe they're using that as a way of sort of controlling the travel, because if there's a family of 4, that's an extra £1,000 onto your travel costs. It's crazy, absolutely crazy, but that's what it costs. So you need to order this day 2 and day 8 kit. It will be delivered to your place of quarantine, so you have to specify where you're going to be for your quarantine. I believe they're talking about dropping it to day 2 and day 5, but I'm guessing you're going to get the same kit. It just depends which day you do it. For clarity, the day that you arrive in the UK is day 0. So even if you arrive at 11 o'clock at night, that's day 0, and day 1 is obviously the next day, and then you would have to take the first test on day 2. There are a series of post boxes around the UK that have been marked as priority. You can find them, again, I've linked to how you find them on the post, and you can need to find your nearest one and put your test in that. They're actually quite easy to do. If you haven't had a COVID test before, the actual PCR test is a bit uncomfortable when it goes right up your nose and all the way back down your throat, and you just feels a bit there. Doing it yourself is a heck of a lot easier. It comes in a little pack. The instructions are really, really straightforward. Just follow them properly. Make sure you don't accidentally touch the swab on a dirty surface or something. And then you put it in a little vial, you put it in a packet and post it. And you have to put it in one of these priority boxes, which are being emptied, I believe, more regularly, so that PCR tests can get delivered back to the labs within a decent time frame, and then they can do the test, and then they email you to tell you whether it was positive or negative. Now, even if you test negative on your day 2, so obviously you'll have just done your negative PCR test in France, for example, then you've got your day 2 test when you're back in the UK. Even if that's negative as well, you still have to continue and do your day 8 test. That's really important. I believe the fine for missing your day 8 one is huge. And even if your day 8 one is negative, you still have to quarantine until day 10. So getting a negative test does not in any way absolve you from the rest of what you have to do for quarantine, but it does mean you don't have to extend it. So if day 8 comes back and it's positive, you then got to do another 10 days of quarantine and do more tests and everything else. So that's all that those mean. You can't just magically leave quarantine. You can, however, pay for something called a test to release, which I think is on day 5, I believe. Again, you've got to pay an extra, I don't know how much it was, a couple of £100 to get. You can do your day 8 test on day 5. The private practice that you get your test from will be able to advise you further on how to do that. I don't know if they have to send you out a second test or if you can use the day 8 test or not. But they'll be able to advise you further on how to do that and how to pay for it. But that one does mean that if the day 5 early release test comes back negative, you can then leave your quarantine early. So it's up to you whether you want to pay for that or not. Now, obviously, depending on what country you've been to, depends on the severity of the rules that you have to follow when you cross the border. So green countries are a lot easier. I believe you only have to quarantine for a reduced number of days. Amber is most common. And then red, I believe, if you come from a red country within 10 days, you still need to book into a COVID hotel, which is ridiculously expensive, and quarantine there. But again, the current guidelines to all of those countries will be on the link that I put in the website for you, so that you can see what the most up-to-date are. And don't forget that they change really, really quickly. So even if you're planning on booking a holiday a month from now and you look to see what guidelines France are right now, in a month's time it could definitely change. So make sure you check as you're going on your holiday, and also whilst you're on your holiday, in case things have changed whilst you are away. Children 4 and under do not have to do these day 2 and day 8 tests. It doesn't say if they have to do a negative COVID test across the border. I'm going to assume that they do, but it doesn't clearly say that on their website. So if I were you and you're travelling with young kids, I don't know how it works with babies. I'll be honest, I have no experience of dealing with children and having to get them tests. So if you've got young kids, you probably know more about this than I do. If you're not sure, I would either contact someone in the government or go into one of the laboratoires in France and ask them how you do a test for a young child, because I don't want to comment in case I say something wrong. I've got absolutely no experience on travelling with young kids on this one. But 4 and under don't need to do the day 2 and day 8 tests, so anyone above that does. I had a train of thought then. What was I going to say? I'll move on because I can't remember what I was saying. So, when you have ordered these tests for in the UK quarantine, you will get a reference number. Now, you need the reference number in order to fill out your passenger locator form, which you have to have with you when you cross the UK border. And they do ask for it, and ideally you want it printed out. I believe that they say on the website that they're okay with it as an email form, but we ask for the actual physical paperwork, so it's probably worth going somewhere where you can print out a document, or carrying a little portable printer with you, and when you travel, maybe it makes life easier. So you need to do your passenger locator form. Again, link on how to do that is in the notes, and it's actually quite straightforward. It just asks you where you've been, the countries that you've been to, any other countries that you've transited through, where you're planning on quarantining. If you have to, of course, there are a list of jobs where you don't have to quarantine, and the list for that is on the Gov website if you're exempt or not. But I'm assuming that most people will have to quarantine. So they want to know where you are. They want to know then the number of your COVID test for the UK. Was there anything else? I believe children under 18, or I think it was under 16 for Scotland, you can put on one passenger locator form, and I'm not sure what it is for Northern Ireland. So yeah, you need to check it. That's another important point as well, actually. Although most of the countries in the UK have the same rules, there are some small differences if you're going to be quarantined in Scotland than if you're going to be quarantining in England. Obviously, I've quarantined in England, so I know what the rules are for that one. And again, just sharing my experiences on travelling from France to England. If you are going to be going into Scotland, again, check the links that I've put in the website, because Scotland does have some slightly different things, like children under 16 only. If they're above that, they need their own form. And that's it. It's a lot of paperwork. So let me just recap exactly, and I'm going to read this so that I don't get it wrong, but let me just recap the steps of exactly what you need. So first of all, you need to book your travel when you're coming back from France to the UK. Then you need to book your PCR test that has to be done within 72 hours of crossing into the UK. Then if you're travelling with a dog, you need to make sure that you've booked your tapeworm 1 to 5 days before you cross. It's like a friggin' military operation, this. Then you've got to order your UK COVID test to wherever you're going to be quarantining in the UK. Then you need to get the number or the registration number for those UK tests, and then you need to fill in your passenger locator form. Now your passenger locator form has to be filled in only 48 hours, within 48 hours of travel, so you can't fill it in the week before. But you can order your UK tests, I think up to a week before you're planning on using them. But you can't fill in the locator form until you're actually going to be travelling. And then my recommendation is to print out everything and print out a couple of copies of everything. Certainly the passenger locator form and your negative COVID results when you get it. And that's it. It's a pain. But if you're planning on travelling, that is the process that you have to go through at the moment. So if you are planning on taking a trip to Europe, a couple of things that I want to remind you of. If you're travelling with a motorhome of over 3.5 tonnes, you are going to need motorhome blind spot stickers if you're planning on going to an urban area. And no, they haven't as yet expanded on what an urban area is. So make sure that you can watch our video on that. Don't forget to download your free checklist for travelling into Europe, and that can help you remember everything that you need to take, like your high-vis jackets and your warning triangles and all the rest of the rubbish that you legally need to carry with you in Europe. If you're new to travelling there, there's a whole list of things you need, and you can download that checklist. The link is in the notes. And if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. It's great to have you here. If you would like to see more videos about travelling in the UK and Europe by motorhome or camper, by all means hit subscribe and the little bell, and you'll be notified when our next video comes out. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.
We're talking about a good time. We're chasing every moment, all the good nights. We're always looking out, and it's a good